How did you almost die? Had a medical emergency while driving. Didn't know what was happening and decided to turn around and go home. I was only 2-3 minutes away. I got stuck at the train tracks on my way back and I was the first car waiting at the traffic arms that come down. When I asked the police after in hospital, they said witnesses claimed they saw me slump over, the train passes and before the arms even came by, lifeless body nailed the gas pedal. Went flying over the tracks and into everyone waiting on other side. So yeah, I was probably 10 seconds away from driving under a full-speed train and dying. Rock on gesture. When I was like 2, I was playing tag with my brother and slipped. I hit my forehead right on the sharp edge of the wall. My head split open and blood was gushing out. I remember blacking out and coming back to life on my couch with 3 paramedics standing over me. I blacked out again and I can't remember anything else besides in bed with a bright light shining in my face. Apparently when I was knocked out, the paramedics said to my parents that the ambulance would be too much, so my parents rushed me to the ER. There I got stitched up and I still have this scar. Lost grip of angle grinder with cutting disc. It cut through my index finger, the entire top of my left hand and halfway up my left arm. I must have tried to stop it and in the process it cut through my right wrist as well. I tried to stop the bleeding myself but failed. By the time the ambulance arrived they battled to find a vein due to very low blood pressure. I lost consciousness while they were working on me and woke up later in hospital. Spent some time in ICU and later that week had surgery on both hands to repair the damage. Pneumonia as a 4-year-old. Nurse on the phone kept saying bad rest and fluids. My mom said fuck that, something wrong, and took me to the ER. They said if she'd waited another night I probably would have died in my sleep. I was severely dehydrated and my lungs collapsed. More recently I was bucked off a horse onto a sheet of ice atop a snow embankment. Smacked my head and nearly blacked out but saw hooves coming down toward my head so I rolled away in time. Came out of it with a sprained back and gnarly concussion and whiplash. Car wreck. My grandma's blood sugar skyrocketed while she was driving, and she blacked out at a stoplight and T-boned another car. If not for my seatbelt I'd have gone through the windshield. I had to have exploratory surgery. They found a pancreatic hematoma and my duodenum was torn. The doctors told me that if I didn't have the surgery I would be septic within a week and die. I've also taken 2 boxes of NyQuil. I've eaten a lot of triple C's at once. I've taken 13 trazodone at once cause it was all I had. 1. My dad beat me to near death. 2. I almost drowned when I was 12, couldn't swim and was showing off. 3. My dad buried me alive. My sisters dug me out of the ground. 4. My dad did drown me, my mom gave me CPR, broke 4 ribs. 5. My dad hung me from a noose from my child and wooden swing set. My sister cut me down and got me breathing again. 6. My dad beat me almost to death again. 7. I sat in a bathtub with an HKVP9 in my mouth. The police broke in my door and stopped me. Life can be hard. I almost gave up. Collapsed lung as a newborn. Severe case of the flu at a year-old, wasn't even able to keep down water, almost drowning a few times as a child, being in a car accident but walking away unharmed at 15, suicidal for a couple months at 13 after being put on Zoloft but didn't act on the thoughts, thanks for almost making me kill myself and traumatizing me as a result, mom, and falling down the stairs a few times as a child. How I'm still alive after all of that remains a mystery. Guess I'm part cockroach. A guy in a large SUV ran a red light doing 70 miles per hour and T-boned me in my Nissan hatchback. 2.5 days in shock trauma and another week where if I wanted to use the bathroom I had to crawl because of the trauma from my seatbelt on my chest made it nearly impossible to sit or stand up straight. Arm went through the driver's side window, 42 stitches. Transmission bashed my ankles, are still black, might be for the rest of my life. I still get vertigo occasionally 6 months later. Not a fun time in my life. Which time? Truck crash, my fault. Ran into a ditch. Head hit windshield and busted the entire thing. Truck crash, someone else's fault. Was stopped and they rear-ended me doing at least 55 miles per hour. Knocked my truck 150 yards off the road. Crashed motorcycle at about 120-ish mile per hour. Was slowing down from 150-ish mile per hour. Did about a dozen flips. Shattered my wrist, rushed up my knee, and I was sore for months. There are a few other instances but to leave those untold. I had 8 kidney stones affecting both of my kidneys when I was 16. The urologist I saw refused to blast them and made me pass them on my own. Some time went by and then one day I couldn't keep anything down, not even water. Thought it was just a flu, but I was throwing up so much that I eventually called my sister to take me to the ER. The last stone I'd gotten stuck in, that was septic. White blood cell count was so high, doctors told me I was lucky I came in when I did. On my way to work on my bicycle, driver blew the red light on a turn lane in hopes to beat traffic and didn't see me. I got knocked pretty good, but I screamed to stop and had the living wind knocked out of me. I couldn't get up for more than 30 minutes and was in huge pain. I've made a full recovery and I'm still dealing with insurance, but I'm happy to be alive. My family reached out and are helping me get my life together. Tell everyone you love them often. 2 different times I had a blood clot in my lung about a year apart from each other. Drove to the hospital both times by myself, hunched over the steering wheel, barely able to breathe, and walked right into the emergency room. First time they didn't test to see if there was anything wrong other than the blood clot. So I didn't have to keep taking blood thinners as far as I knew. Stopped taking the blood thinners and it happened again. Now I'm on them for life. Been a few times, but the most recent one was a few years ago. I greened out from smoking too weed, collapsed and hit my head on the soap dish in the bath, and then inhaled a whole lot of water. I was unconscious for a few minutes, really not sure, but I woke up to my ex freaking out and not knowing what to do. The ironic thing is, he was a nurse but totally panicked and forget his training when it was someone he was very attached to. A car pulled in front of me I never even saw, T-boned them on my chopper going 35. It happened right in front of a medical office building, which is why I was intubated as fast as I was, which is the only reason I typed this today. So a cop told me, later on. After I landed, before I passed out, the last thing I remember is seeing the color of the bone marrow in my left femur. So I've given up riding motorcycles. When I was 4 I had scarlet fever. With a temp of 105 for over a day, my parents paid the funeral home. It was a done deal. When I was 25 I bled out during a C-section. That means first they deliver the baby, then they sew up the bleeders, then they refill me with blood, then and only then can they try to restart my heart, which must have been difficult because they broke a rib so many times. As a baby left in an alley. As an infant, multiple end-stage diseases. As a toddler, fell off an unstable child's bike seat and cracked my head open on the street. As a young adult, had a medically suspicious lump. As a young adult, still 3 car accidents where the car was going 45 miles per hour faster than me. As a full-grown adult, admitted for a BMI of 13.5. We were out fishing, I was sitting at the edge of the boat with my feet on the anchor rope. Didn't realize my uncle tossed the anchor into the water. Next thing I know, it's wrapped around me, pulling tight on my stomach. I grabbed onto the boat for dear life. It hurt so bad that I wasn't ever gonna let go. The water was so scary. Skull, the most cartoonish shit I've experienced. Passenger in my friend's car. We were turning left and someone let us go. Idiot lady passed him over the line and nailed us at 50 miles per hour. My friend hesitated and therefore the front bumper was hit and we spun about 8 times before resting at the side of a building. If he went any earlier we would have been T-boned and I would be dead, if not a worse quality of life. My girlfriend's mom almost killed me with a sandwich. Had recently developed a severe rye allergy which had forgotten to inform her of. Sandwich was rye bread. Few minutes later I'm as sick as a dog, throwing up, oxygen dropped to 60 in her solution. Sit me on the couch and pray. And then there were the 13 suicide attempts, but another story for another day. Was in the Bay of Fundy and exploring. Not paying attention to things. I turned around after wandering for a bit and I turned, and the route I took into a cove was now covered in water. I head back to the edge of the water and it's coming in quick. I have to climb up and over the water on the near vertical slopes to get out. Pretty scary when I look back at it. I was riding my bike outside the town. For a second I lost my focus, and as road had no guards, how you call them, on the sides, my bike slipped on the side towards the ground. My bike just turned on left and I fell middle of the road. I turned around, and I was super lucky that there were no cars behind me, as I doubt they can even stop on time. Where to start? Almost drowned at a YMCA pool when I was 6, fell 300 feet slipping off an embankment at 8, mom stabbed me in the cheek just a few weeks after, broke my neck during my backyard wrestling days, survived cancer twice, 2 tours in Afghanistan, trying to maintain a healthy relationship with my girlfriend. You know, the usual things. I was standing in line outside of the Roxy in Hollywood. A fire truck was pulling out of the driveway next door. They took the turn off of the driveway too sharply and hit a fire hydrant. Part of the hydrant burst off and propelled halfway through a metal sign that was approximately 1 foot away from my head. Almost choked to death on candy 2 separate times during my childhood, about 10 years apart. Childbirth as well, my blood pressure was climbing like crazy before I even knew I was in labor. Someone also pulled a gun on me in traffic. I'd give they would have actually fired it, but it was pretty fucking terrifying. The first time, my bio father threw me into the pool when I couldn't swim. I don't think the real reason was to teach me how to swim, especially considering his prior bad treatment of me. The second time was when I tried to do something very bad to myself on purpose, if you catch my drift. I almost drowned in the opposing currents of a public swimming pool when I was a kid. Every time I was able to surface, I would scream for help, but it was ignored. Both my stepsisters swam past and kicked me further under the water, one kicked my head. My big brother saved my life, hit by a drunk driver. I wasn't wearing a seatbelt. I was sleeping in the back of the van and was thrown across the car and had my head lodged between another seat and the wall of the car. Woke up with a gash on my face and that's it. I still can't believe that was my only injury. My parents are abusive, and before I moved out my dad beat the crap out of me and tried to strangle me. He beat me to the ground and then squeezed my neck till I passed out. I remember waking up on the floor and my parents still yelling like nothing happened. My first car lost control, swerved into oncoming, and then back to the shoulder where it finally stopped. On one side of my car was a big tree, on the other side of the car was a metal fence, and right next to my head was the metal pole of a road sign.